Welcome drummers from drumlessons.com and all of those who wish to challenge themselves with polyrhythms. My name is Dave Atkinson, and on this lesson we're going to talk about playing a 4/5 or 4 against 5, 5 against 4, however you want to call it, polyrhythm. And this one is actually a little bit trickier than the 4/3. So if this is the first one you're trying and you haven't looked at or even tried the 4/3 yet, I suggest you go back and try that one first. It's usually it's the first polyrhythm I teach people, so try that one first, then come back to this one. If you've already seen that one, let's get started on the 5/4 polyrhythm. Now, if you guys can remember, the way I notate these polyrhythms is with a chart method, okay? And the way this one is, I have a 4 pattern on the top, and then I have a 5 pattern on the bottom. Now again, if you're not sure what this chart is, I explain it in great detail on the 4/3 polyrhythm, so again, check that video out. Basically, each box represents one count. The X's inside the box represents a hit, okay? Now if you look at just the top pattern, the 4 pattern, you're going to notice that the X happens every 4 boxes, or every 4 counts, okay? And this is your basic 4 pattern. I'm going to show you how that looks on the leg. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Very basic. You can speed it up if you want, but every 4 counts, you're going to hit with your right hand. Now let's go to the bottom one, which is the 5 pattern. The 5 pattern is a little bit tricky. It's a bit different than what you're used to. It still repeats every 5 boxes, but there's 2 X's that repeat. It's not just one. Check it out. You'll notice that on the 1 and the 3 count, you're going to have a note or an X. That you're going to play with your left hand right now. It actually counts out like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Looks like this on your leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure you keep the same counting method or the same note value when you're playing both hands, otherwise it's not going to work. Here's what they look like together. Now that might be a bit tricky and a bit confusing. Let me explain it a little bit more. Now if you guys know anything about math or fractions, you'll know that 4 does not go into 5 and 5 does not go into 4. All right, so what you got to do is you got to find the lowest common denominator between the two, and in this situation, that lowest common denominator is 20. So that means every 20 counts, or every 20 boxes, the pattern is going to repeat, or both X's are going to line up and start again. Okay, that's why with this pattern and with this polyrhythm, you'll notice I've got 5 bars, or 20 boxes, on the actual chart. Now, if you want to do some even more math, you'll know that 20 counts divides into 4 5 times, and if you apply that to a bar of sheet music in 4/4, that's 5 bars. So as you'll notice, when I get to the actual sheet music for this lesson, there's going to be 5 bars. It's going to be a 5-bar pattern because it takes 5 bars for the pattern to actually repeat. I'll explain all that in a second. Let's develop the pattern first and then move it to the kit. Okay, so just to give you some reference of how this actually works, I'm going to play this pattern on my legs, but I'm going to have a metronome going, and the metronome is going to be a quarter note click. And that quarter note I'm also going to use for my right hand to play the 4 pattern on. This way you can actually hear the difference between the 5 pattern against that 4 count. Here's how that sounds. Okay, so this is my 4 count right here. Now I'm going to add the 5 with my left hand over top of that. Here we go. See what repeats? Right there. Okay, so once you've got that down, we're going to move it to the kit, okay? And just like we did with the 4/3 polyrhythm, we're going to try and break this down so we can become completely independent. So with each limb, we can play a 4 pattern and a 5 pattern on the opposite limb. We want to make sure that we're completely fluent with this before we actually start playing it in beats. And the reason why I say that is because you're never going to know when you're playing a song and you need to accent the bass drum on the 5 count, or you need to accent your ride cymbal on that 5 pattern, or you need to accent maybe your snare. So you want to be completely independent that way. That way, whenever your bandmates are saying, hey, let's accent this in a 5 count, you can do it. Here's what we're going to do to start out with. We're going to have our right hand play on the hi-hat on the 4 count, and the left hand, we're going to play on the snare drum with the 5 count. Here we go. right, so already I'm being able to feel the two different patterns there. Now let's switch it up. Left hand's going to play the 5 pattern, right hand's going to play the 4 pattern. I'm going to do it on the hi-hat and the snare just like I did before, just the opposite way around. Here's how that sounds. Okay, so you get the idea. It's starting to sound really polyrhythmic now. Let's move on to our feet. Let's play the 4 pattern on our right hand and the 5 pattern on our right foot. This is how this sounds. So that's when it starts sounding like you can actually use it in your playing when you start adding your bass drum in. Now let's change it up again. Let's play the 4 count on our right foot and the 5 pattern on our right hand. This is how that sounds. All right, now last but not least, we're going to try our 2 feet alternating patterns. Let's try our left foot doing the 4 and the right foot doing the 5. Here's how that sounds. Now, just for fun, I'm going to try doing the other way around. I'm going to do my 5 on my left foot and my 4 on my right foot. It's a bit tricky, but let's see how it sounds. All right, once you've finally gotten all those limbs independent, I mean, you don't really have to do the left foot on the hi-hat with the 5 count. It is a bit tricky, but if you can, all the better. Once you got that independence down, you can start applying it in different fills and beats. And the reason why, again, like I say, to develop that is because you really want to truly feel the 5 and the 4 at the same time, so you can manipulate it and play it in a musical setting. Now let's play this in an actual beat. Here we go. I've notated the bass drum with stems pointing downwards, and a lot of people might not be used to this. It's just an easier way for you to see the difference of the 2 patterns, and reading is a lot simpler that way, okay? Also, you'll notice that I'm using dotted notes for the bass drum. Dotted 8th notes are the equivalent of 3/16 notes. Again, that's a whole other lesson on notation, so we don't have time for that now. I'm just going to talk about the polyrhythm. Here it is. Check it out. Okay, that sounds cool enough as it is, but what I want to do is I want to speed it up just a little bit so you can get a different feel for it. And maybe I'll throw some 8th notes in the hi-hat and all that, but just listen to what you can actually do with this polyrhythm. Here we go. Awesome, guys. I hope you're loving these lessons so far. I love playing polyrhythms. They're a lot of fun once you actually understand them, and I hope you are actually able to play this. If not, go back and watch it again. Take your time. There's no rush on this. One last piece of advice that I want to give you, though, something that I talked about in my 4/3 polyrhythm, is you don't necessarily have to be at a drum set to practice this. There were many times where I was sitting at my desk, sitting at school, sitting, even when I was driving somewhere, where I was tapping on my right hand and my left hand, or my right foot and my left foot, anything. I was tapping the polyrhythms out. And this not only trains your muscles, but it mainly trains your mind. It's a mental practice, so you can fully understand the difference between the 2 patterns over top of each other. So take this wherever you're at. If you're at school, if you're at work and you have a break, wherever you're at, try and just tap them out, even when you're walking. It's a great way. It's a great way to actually practice when you're not behind the kit. All right, enjoy, and I'll see you on the 7/4 polyrhythm video. See ya.